Welcome to Biohacking Beauty, the podcast where we dive deep into the science of youthful skin and empower you with the latest strategies in biohacking and skincare. I'm your host, Amitai Eshel, and as always, we are here to simplify your journey towards radiant, youthful skin. This podcast is brought to you by Young Goose. Young Goose Skincare is a company I founded together with my lovely wife, Anastasia Khojaeva, where we combine biohacking and skincare expertise to give you powerful solutions for aging beautifully and skin optimization. Today, we have a truly exciting guest coming to us for the second time, Dr. Scott Sherr. He is a world-renowned expert in hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which has obviously incredible potential for skin rejuvenation and overall health. Dr. Sherr is also the co-founder of Trochies, a company that's revolutionizing biohacking with their innovative products like Methylene Blue and immune-boosting Trochies, alongside products that are more calming and sleep-inducing. In this episode, we'll dive deep into how hyperbaric oxygen therapy can help with anti-aging, how oxygenating your skin can promote a youthful glow, and how Trochies' biohacking tools are changing the game, not only for me as far as my day-to-day, but for skin health and also beyond. Whether you're looking to enhance your beauty routine or optimize your overall well-being, this episode is packed with insights you won't want to miss. So let's get started. Okay, the great and powerful Dr. Scott Sherr is back on the Biohacking Beauty podcast.
It's been a minute, man. It's been a minute. I can't remember. It's been at least a couple of years, right?
It's been a minute, but since we've spoken last, it's been about 120 minutes. So, great to have you on, obviously.
Yeah, so good joke. I had Amitai over here on the Smarter Not Harder podcast, which is on our network. We recorded earlier today, so we're doing the double header. It's good.
Yes, exactly. And Scott, I'll give you a title. You are the most recommended podcast guest.
The most recommended, really?
Yes, yeah. I mean, like, you have been recommended at least like 10 times by other people, where I'll be like, oh, we have blah, blah, the podcast, and we're talking about that. We talk a lot about, things that are other than skincare, but that would improve, skin health at the end of the day. For example, hyperbarics, and everyone's like, oh, who you should have on? Doctor. So, it's good. It's good to give the listeners what they want, which is why you're on.
Well, it's appreciated. I have to say, there's not many people that do what I do, especially when it comes to hyperbaric therapy. So
yeah,
there's very few other people that would be in the same, hyperbaric therapy. Scott Sherr kind of goes together for a lot of people these days. That's okay. I've been doing it a long time.
Yeah, and I think it's coming full circle. I think yours is how's like Liam Neeson says in his movies, like, I'm a man with a very particular set of skills, right? Like your very particular set of, like, I would say, entrepreneurial or interest topics kind of culminate to the kind of hype right now, which is around mitochondrial health and how the health of our mitochondria really is at the root of almost all aging processes, right? Like, we went through an expansion and now contraction path of identifying the drivers of aging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think what I say to kind of sum it up for people is, like, I'm a conductor of all things health optimization, right? So, and when it comes down to it, I'm a generalist that has lots of different interests, and then as a result of that, it's kind of taken me a lot of down like some really crazy and interesting rabbit holes with people, places, and things along the way. I mean, meeting Dr. Ted Achacoso, a polymath genius, crazy guy, in 2017 really did change, like, the trajectory for a lot of what I was doing. When he came in and said, let's create this nonprofit based on the framework that I've developed in Manila, in the Philippines, over a decade or so of practice. It was kind of what I was looking for, from like like a paradigm shift thing, and also a framework shift for me, because I got, on the hyperbaric side, I got really tired of people not doing as well as I thought that they were going to do when they were in the chamber. I thought that you go into the chamber, everything was going to be like sunshine and rainbows, just like,
Hmm.
like your poop wouldn't stink or something. And so, but it does still stink, your
And
poop.
then one guy pooped inside the chamber, and we found out.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, it's okay. We all have accidents. It's all right. You think it's going to be a fart, and it happens, right? Um, I've heard people say never trust a fart, but that's interesting, right? So,
Uh-huh.
for me, knowing when I first got into hyperbaric medicine, like a decade ago now, thinking that I could put everybody in the chamber, everybody would feel better, and realizing very quickly that no, that wasn't the case at all. Like, the people needed to have like a lot more help a lot of times before they would go in, and to see the benefits that we would hope that they would have
Hmm.
seen initially. And this comes down to like, my main thing is that it's not, if getting in a chamber would be helpful, it's when. And the problem in the hyperbaric field in general is that, like, it's if you have
Yeah.
a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If you have skin, everything looks like a cream. I don't know what's the skin analogy for you. I don't know.
Uh,
Um, but I gravitated towards an integrative approach to hyperbaric medicine. And then in 2017, when we set up the nonprofit, the Health Optimization Medicine and Practice nonprofit, things really shifted for me, as far as my clinical practice, where now I had a foundation where I could work with people using this foundational framework that would allow them to do better in a hyperbaric chamber. But
mhm.
surprise, even if they didn't get into a hyperbaric chamber, they would still do better because they were optimized. And a big piece of this, of course, was working on mitochondrial function. And
Yeah.
that's actually a pretty big through line for me, as you kind of alluded to, right? So hyperbaric therapy, what are we doing? We're optimizing energy production amongst other things, but you have to be able to make energy, and where you
Yeah.
make that is in the mitochondria. And then, well, if you can't do that well, you're going to not go, you're not going to have the kinds of outcomes that you want. And so let's optimize mitochondrial function. And so how do we test that? You can use something called Metabolomics, which is the
Yes.
study of how you can use various kinds of testing measures to look at what's happening in the environment, what's happening in your genes, all together in real time, using cellular energy metabolites and et cetera. So
Yeah,
anyway,
Metabolomics reminds me like a guy sitting with you like in the discussion, and he wants you to get to the bottom line. You're trying to philosophize like, well, blah blah, and mechanistically, if you think about it like that, you might think there's like, okay, but can you please get to the bottom line and tell me what's happening in real time? I think that's what metabolomics are.
yeah.
They're taking all of that, they're the bottom of the funnel, right? Like they're taking all of that conceptual, mechanistic type discussions around things that might help you, things that are going to make you feel better, yes, no, whatever. And at the end of the day, this is basically like an eventual, that's a readout of how well your body functions, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. I think the end of the funnel, because in the sense that you have this gene environment interaction, the first real level that's happening is in your metabolome. And
Hmm.
so, like, you have your genes that can get transcribed into proteins. It's like, so you have your genome, you have your transcriptome, you have your proteome, and you have your metabolome, right? So it kind of comes from your genes down or out, or whatever you want to say. And then your environment outside your body, that's where it's obviously interacting with your genes, right? It's obviously interacting with what gets transcribed and not, but where you can really see that and where we have the most robust data now is in metabolomic data. But eventually we're going to have something called the narcissome, right? Which is like everything about every level of your biology, everything from your genes to your proteins to your, well, of course, yeah, of course. And so you're going to be able to measure all of these things together and then create these sort of digital AI twin avatars of you, that give you risks of things like diseases down the line, but also like, what are you supposed to do right now to help optimize your health? What we have
Yeah.
in clinically now is metabolomics to be able to do a lot of that, though.
Yeah. It's funny because that is, so if you ask ChatGPT, which I assume you ask ChatGPT things pretty often, if you ask them,
Sure.
yeah, what is the next of skincare? What is the future of skincare? Which I'm sure you've asked ChatGPT. Um,
Of course. Many.
ChatGPT will tell you the vague. First of all, it's going to tell you peptide and hyaluronic acid because it is it's drinking the Kool-Aid of the internet,
Of course.
but it's also going to tell you precision, like a personalized skincare, and that actually doesn't exist. Personalized skincare. The reason it doesn't exist is because the FDA would not allow you to create a new formula out of scratch and to provide it to a patient without even doing incubation, without making sure it is viable. It doesn't, grow bacteria, and it doesn't, whatever that is. You're going to have like 40 weeks of testing before you could send it to that patient.
So it doesn't get
So
regulated the same way as a supplement would, right? Because anybody can make any supplement anytime and then just say here, right? Because there's no FDA regulation when it comes to supplementation, at least. But you're saying with skin products, it's different then.
yeah, interesting. Yeah, I never thought about the fact that there's a stark difference between that and a supplement.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I think supplements are even easier to just do. Like, for example, there is a supplement that just got like basically it was Joe Rogan and Kevin James talked about its supplement on Joe Rogan's podcast. It became like extremely popular. It's called something gold. It was like an anti-inflammatory, like a natural anti-inflammatory, and then the FDA was like, "Wow, that's becoming popular. Let's see what's going on there." And it was basically just like NSAIDs.
So they tested it and they were just like an NSAID?
Yeah,
Like just,
the label said like, Shilajit and, probably like I don't know, thoughts and prayers. I don't know what it says there, but it was like just like legit, like Tylenol, basically.
yeah, I got it.
So,
Yeah. And that's a challenge in the supplement world for sure.
yeah, skincare, you would have a much harder time doing that. You would also, even if you did do that, you would have it would be impossible as far as the FDA's budget to infer quantities, which in skincare are everything. I think pH and quantities probably, or concentrations are probably the two things that would make two identical products like completely different.
Makes sense.
Um,
Makes sense. So you can take somebody's like skin health and then create something specifically from that without having like lots of testing, it sounds like, to be able to prove that it worked or something.
yeah, but what you could do, and obviously, that's what we're doing. We're not out with it yet because actually it needs to be FDA registered. Is a metabolomics test specifically for the skin, and then we could say, "Hey, your avatar fits this profile of you would enjoy this product formulation, fill in the blank," right? So
Right.
this is really precision or like personalized skincare is skincare that exists, that the regimen is personalized to you
Right.
rather than yes, and I think ChatGPT doesn't know it yet.
Well, it sounds like
So
it was on the right track with one of them, right? With the precision skincare, right? But the idea is that it's bigger than just looking at somebody's skin and seeing what they need. It's like what's happening underneath the hood. And then you're using metabolomic testing as well as a way
yeah,
to be able to create that, which is, what we do at the nonprofit, right? So, and so we were really doing the framework, the education is teaching people how to understand metabolomics and then
hmm
how to use metabolomics to personalize diet, lifestyle, behaviors,
hmm
and of course, supplementation, right? Because what I need and what you need may be very, very different. And your genetics may tell you that you need, you have a methylation problem or something, but it may be very different from an expression perspective for you than it is for me. And you don't know that unless you're looking at, the real time
yeah.
metrics overall.
I
So
think your genome is probability, right? Like there is a great company, by the way. Really appreciate that skincare company. It is called Biologique Recharge. I think it's a symbol for me as an entrepreneur in the skincare space. It is the symbol of the epitome of 20-year-old skincare company, like in a good way.
okay.
And one of the things that they did, which is an incredible marketing trick, is that they certify, in air quotes, an esthetician to read the genetic testing that they do for you.
Okay.
And basically, she reads off a page what products are recommended there, but
Of
she's
course.
certified.
Of course, it has
Um,
to be certified in something.
has to be certified, and she has obviously something to hang on the wall, which is incredible. I mean, but the thing is that what's incredible about it, first of all, they're no sort they want to kind of continue with the line, but also that they are saying, hey, you need this product because you have a higher probability of, college than normal or whatever that is. And unfortunately, it is the worst way to recommend skincare I've ever heard about, because it doesn't account even to, like, speaking, it doesn't even account to the fact that you're a boy or a girl. And as we just discussed on your podcast, like, you have different collagen density as you grow older, whether you're a boy or girl. You'll respond to like different stimulus differently. So, like, it doesn't account to, by the way, if the person does like HRT or not, for example, which would be
Yeah.
very different. Anyway, it doesn't account to many things. The diet, the environment. It is pure speculation. So I think I wonder if Metabolomics would get its fair shake, or how long it's going to take before it becomes the new DNA. So sexy. It's very hard to replace it with an unsexy word like metabolomics.
Yeah, it's a difficult word to say. Difficult word to say. People have a hard time. And um, it is, it's one of those things where like there was an article written in 2012 or 2013 that called metabolomics the stethoscope of the 21st century.
Mhm,
So they were looking at it from a disease marker perspective. They weren't looking at it from like a
mhm,
health perspective, because that's what the system is doing, right? Is looking at trying to look for
mhm.
diseases rather than keep people healthy. And that's the perspective shift that we do at Home Hope. But um, this has been around a long time now. But as you know from your experience, I'm sure, and certainly I know this as clinical like a practitioner, it takes at least 20 years for something to go from the research where it's robust research to actual
Mhm.
clinical practice. 20 years. And so is everybody like, oh, AI is going to make that better? I'm not convinced that it's going to do anything, because it still takes that long for a new generation of doctors to start prescribing things. Because what doctors do is that they learn something in medical school, and that is what they do for the majority of
Yeah.
them. And so it means that they do extra reading and CME and all that kind of crap. Yeah, a little bit, but for the most part, like 95% of what they did in medical school for most of them is what they're
Mhm,
going to do throughout almost their entire career, unless it's
mhm.
like a sea change event where something is like extremely just brought into the fray or
Yeah.
taken out of the fray or whatever it might be. So
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of confidence that metabolomics is going to continue to get more popular. I think that um, it's more challenging for providers to learn, and that's what we were trying to do at the nonprofit, is give people a framework to use metabolomics in clinical practice, learn it in real time, see how they can implement it. Because I learned a lot of the medical students, like medical docs like me, like we learned about a lot of this stuff in medical school. We just didn't learn that there was anything you could do about the things
Yeah.
that you were memorizing, right? So I learned about the Krebs cycle. I learned about
Yeah.
all the antioxidants, but I didn't know you can measure all those things. I just knew that there's a B12 and a folate. I didn't know there was anything else. I didn't know there was anything like NAD or, I mean, I guess I learned about NAD. Of course, I learned about NAD, but I didn't learn about, can you measure it, or can you do anything about it? Or is this something
Mhm.
you should do and something about it, or whatever it might be, right? So um, it's the clinical practice. I think medicine is changing a little bit too here, because like things have gotten like so super specialized. Like just like you said, like things like went real wide with longevity and mitochondrial health. Now coming
Mhm.
back in, like I think that in the other respect, it's kind of like things kind of got really are getting really narrow in clinical
Yeah.
medicine, and I do
Yeah.
think that there's a push to go further wide now a little bit,
Mhm.
and AI might help with that a little bit as well. I have noticed that a little bit. Like I still work, just like dabble in conventional medicine, and like I can see it a little bit there where the conventional system is a little bit different than it was pre chat GPT, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
Like there's something there. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, because again, it's like as slow as, molasses. But the key is
Mhm.
that, can we create a new system that is parallel to that keeps people healthy, and
Yes.
or at least focuses on the health of the system? And that's what Home Hope is all about. And like that's the system that I think we can create, which is like yes, you need a conventional medicine system. You need acute care. Like, it's fantastic. You go get another freaking jujitsu injury, you can go to the hospital again, right? And you can say hi to the ER doctors. Hey, I'm back. Sorry, I broke another rib, or
You
I.
might not recognize me because my eyebrow is next to my chin, but that is me from the last time where I broke my hand.
I'm sure you're like on the first name basis, right? So, but it's good to have like that system. Like we need. Like I worked in a trauma center in Baltimore when I was in medical school. Like shit, it goes down, right? Like you get shit,
Hmm.
get shot by like with a gun, like stabbed, like you should go to the hospital, right?
You
Like
should go out of Baltimore also, but
that's another story. Like it was a good place. It was a good place to train. Let's just say that.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Going back to like what we said about going wide, going back more narrow. I wonder how your view on mitochondria has changed throughout the years. Obviously, medical school, etc. But you've been a mitochondrial optimizer so long. I wonder how that changed through time.
That's a really good question. I think that I was alluding to this earlier, where in medical school you learn that you have a mitochondria. You you learn in like seventh grade you also have mitochondria, right? In
Uh-huh.
seventh grade you learn, so it's like a kind of good evolution, right? So like in seventh or eighth grade, my kids, yeah, in seventh grade. So my daughter who's in eighth grade learned about the mitochondria last year. So you learn like you have a cell, right? And you learn that like there's all these organelles in the cell. There's a nucleus, there's cytoplasm, and they show you one picture of a mitochondria, right? And they said there's a
Yeah.
mitochondria in your cell. That's all you learn. Like, oh, it makes energy. That says the powerhouse of the cell. Oh, that's great. And then that's all I learned until medical school, right? And then medical school, yeah, learned that there was mitochondria in more than one mitochondria per cell. In a lot of cells, there's one type of cell, human cell, that does not have mitochondria. Do you know which one it is?
Yeah. Sperm.
No, they have tons of mitochondria, man. They have
Oh,
tons.
which one?
It is your red blood cells. Your red blood cells don't have
Oh,
mitochondria.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So you're actually your
I was
sperm.
thinking about I was thinking, what was it? What does sperm not have?
It
That
doesn't have
shows
that.
you after
Doesn't it?
four interviews. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. It doesn't have other organelles. I forget which ones, but it has tons of mitochondria,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it needs to swim for a while.
yeah,
Um, but the ovaries and the testicles of the sperm have the most mitochondria per cell.
yeah.
And the one cell that does not have mitochondria is
Is
your red blood cell, because your red blood cell lost the mitochondria so that it had more room to carry oxygen. So in medical school, I learned that we had more than one per cell, and that I learned a little bit. I learned all the intermediates of what was required to make energy. Excuse me. You learn about the electron transport chain. You learn about all this shit, but you don't really like understand it, right? You just like in medical school, you just like learn shit to forget shit, so you can learn more shit and forget shit as fast as possible.
mm-hmm.
Like that's the cycle. I mean, to give you an example, is I remember studying for one of my tests. I think it was my anatomy test or something. And after my test, I went to go get money from the ATM when you still did that, and I couldn't remember my passcode to get my
Wow.
money, and it was just gone. It was gone. Like I to this day I had to get my password changed. I had no idea, and
And it's
so
funny because most people go to medical school in order to get more money. So that was the
I was having a hard time remembering my passcode. Yeah. So this is when we go like give the ATM, you have to put in your passcode and all that kind of crap,
uh-huh.
right? So that's what medical school is about. So I didn't really start learning about, mitochondria itself until I went into the hyperbaric world, right? Into the hyperbaric medicine. And then I realized that something was going on initially. I'm like, okay, well, we're making more energy. So like getting more oxygen in the system. So we're making more energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but of course, like it wasn't until years later when I realized, well, why aren't people doing well when they go into the chamber? And like, oh, it's because their mitochondria aren't working. And then I have to do something about it. And so it really wasn't until like, 5 or 6 years ago when I was like, oh, like something's maybe a little bit longer than that, but now, but like, then I was like, oh, this is something else is going on here. I really need to be focused on these things. And then, learning from TED and understanding the framework of using metabolomics, that just like blew my mind as far as like what mitochondria were doing, how they were operating. And I was also learning from people like in the oncologic space, like that, people like Dr. Nasha Winters and others that do integrative oncology, and like the sort of metabolic approach to cancer and how
Mm-hmm.
the mitochondria were involved there. So that was all happening, within sort of the times of me, like in the mid 20 teens, I guess. And so, yeah, I mean, I've come a long way, I would say, as far as like even if 6 or 7 years ago, I probably couldn't do the whole electron transport chain for you.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like when we're talking about things like methylene blue, and with our, with transcriptions and our, our product line and how we're sort of working on mitochondrial function in such a dramatic way, especially using methylene blue, it's just even come more as a prominent thing that I think of on a regular basis. It's like, well, what are we people? I mean, especially when you think of like the statistics where like 94% of the US population has metabolic dysfunction, which is basically correlated to mitochondrial dysfunction. So like
Yeah.
only 6% of the United States population has optimized mitochondria, right? That means like 94% of people have some element of where the mitochondria aren't working very well. So
Is it like 6% of the general population? Because that would mean basically only kids, or is that of
I
adults?
think it's US adults. I think it's US adults.
Okay.
But that's a good question, right? I thought about that too. So why do people have screwed up mitochondria, right? They have it because number one is insulin resistance, which is happening more in children,
Yeah.
as you know. So if you're insulin resistant, your mitochondria aren't very happy. Number
Mm-hmm.
two, if you're taking medications that disrupt mitochondrial function, the most common one that people take actually is metformin. So metformin is
Yeah.
it destroys complex one of the mitochondria. The idea there is it helps you make new mitochondria that are better. I think the jury's still out from a longevity perspective if you don't have diabetes.
Yeah.
Um, then there's toxins in the environment. There's cosmetics. There's skincare products, not yours. There's 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 other things. There's infections that
Mm-hmm.
destroy mitochondria. So your COVID patients, your long COVID, long haulers, chronic. So many people with these chronic infections have screwed up mitochondria, and so in the end, as you said, it's like everything kind of comes back down to like if your mitochondria don't work, you don't feel good. Like if because you have so many so we talked about fertility wise, like ovary sperm, so fertility rates tanking, right? Then where else do you have symptoms of mitochondrial dysfunction? Your brain has many mitochondria, so you have brain fog,
Mm-hmm.
concentration problems, you have fatigue, etc. You have liver issues because has tons of mitochondria, so you have detox issues, cardiac issues as well. Cardiac, your
Does it affect also like NAFLD and NASH, or specifically like
well,
toxic?
so NAFLD and NASH are a little bit different, right? So these are usually related to insulin resistance and
Mm-hmm.
causing inflammation in the actual, but this is all related to mitochondrial dysfunction too,
Yeah.
right? Because what happens with mitochondrial dysfunction is that you get more inflammation in the system, and that's going to cause reaction, and you're going to have NAFLD or NASH as a result of that, amongst other reasons. But I mean, that's one of the main ways too.
Mm-hmm. Then yeah, and probably cardiovascular issues as well, and all the good stuff.
Yeah, man. So your mitochondria are kind of a big deal, right? But the thing is,
Yeah.
you have to address them. You have to try to help them, but you also have to try to get to understanding, the why, if you can, is like why aren't they working for patients? But
Mm-hmm.
there's some shortcuts, right? It's like one of the shortcuts I use a lot is methylene blue, as you know, because it's a shortcut in the sense that it's going to compensate for mitochondrial dysfunction. So you can use
Yeah.
very low doses of it to start compensating for that very quickly, which can be dramatically helpful for patients. Even when they're really, really sick, because like oftentimes when people are super sick, like it's really difficult to do anything because anything you give them kind of like throws them
Yeah.
it's hard for them to tolerate. But like small doses of methylene blue can go a long way to helping support mitochondrial function and then give you the capacity to start doing more with them to help them heal and get better and work on that mitochondria over time. I mean, the thing is like it takes a long time for people to feel better, right? It doesn't it
Yeah.
doesn't it doesn't happen overnight. Health optimization medicine, the framework is robust, but it takes 6 to 12 months, maybe longer, depending on where people are starting at to start feeling better. So what can you
Yeah.
do immediately? You need to start doing things that are going to work on, mitochondrial dysfunction immediately so that people start feeling better. So yeah, that's where methylene blue comes in. That's where there's so many different things come in to help regulate, but
Yeah.
balancing the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, et cetera.
I have a lot of questions around methylene blue, but I think I just want to cover first, like you know, we've spoken about hyperbaric oxygen therapy with you,
Right.
with Jason Saunders, with Dr. Deep Sea, the great and powerful Dr. Deep Sea.
Don't know who that is. Who's that?
Dr. Deep Sea, you know who that is?
No.
Oh, forget his name, but he was on the podcast. He's like this amazing doctor out of St. Pete,
Okay.
Florida.
Okay.
And he basically is like a retired Navy SEAL.
Cool.
all he cares about is like curing, like divers that got obviously like diving injuries and stuff like that. But he goes and like lives under the sea for like a month and sees
Oh, I
what's
know who this
going
guy
on.
is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I need to
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
you. Yep.
He's
Cool.
a very, very cool guy.
Yeah. The
But
problem
so
with all these
yeah,
hyperbaric guys, and I like them. I mean, everybody's doing is that the context is really important, right? In the sense of,
yes,
and I don't know how much Jason talks about this. Maybe he's talking about it more, but in the sense that hyperbaric therapy is not the right thing for everybody right now, and
yes.
that's the key, and that's the framework that I like to try to
That
navigate
is
there.
you are navigating to my kind of questions, which
Yeah,
is more like anti-aging and hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So like my question is, how can or should hyperbaric oxygen therapy play a role in anti-aging, specifically obviously in terms of skin health and I even I'm not saying regeneration because it just drives it back to the wound healing discussion, but like in anti-aging and in overall skin youthfulness, should it even play a role?
I think it absolutely should. Yeah, I mean, I think that we know that the technology itself can rebuild blood vessels in areas, right? So
Yeah.
if for anything else, if you can rebuild blood vessels in your brain, in your heart, your liver, and your genital tissue, like that's good, right? If you can get
Hmm.
erections again, great. If you can think more, fantastic, right?
Yes.
Yeah, or get better erection, whatever it might be, right? So I think that the context is important, right? In the sense of, do I think it's like the first longevity tool that people should be thinking about? No, it's like maybe number 5 or 10 on the list, right?
Uh-huh.
And but to use it periodically to do some optimization strategy around it can be really robust, right? So my framework is always, you know, what are you doing before hyperbaric therapy, like getting yourself ready for it? What are you doing immediately right before you get into the chamber, like supplements, like technologies to help optimize actually going in the chamber itself? Like sometimes you can do things inside the chamber depending on the type of chamber. And what are you doing afterwards to help make sure that you're doing everything you can to to maximize the longevity benefits and also minimize any potential downsides, right? And that'll
Yeah.
be mostly be on the oxidative load side of things. So, but
Yes.
but I think it absolutely be part of a longevity plan, and I think that the studies that, as you know, that have been done in Israel, showing things like senescent cell population downregulation or destruction. We don't know exactly what happens to them
Uh-huh.
in the chamber. My gut sense here is that we work on optimizing them and like they can regenerate themselves in the
Yes.
chamber,
Yes.
but
Yes.
nobody knows
Yes.
for sure. So I do think it can be part of a robust strategy. But if somebody came to me tomorrow, and as they often do, and say, "Hey, doc, I want to buy a chamber. Or I want it for longevity reasons," I'd be like, "Okay, what else are you doing for longevity? you
Yeah.
know, like what else are you doing?" And because like if you're not doing 5 or 10 other things, then it's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. And because look, the this is going to be a very Israeli thing, but this is like, well, when I went to Israel in 2018. And I went to visit with the doctors there, Dr. Efrati and others. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, great. This is working. You show me all this stuff. This is great. I'm like, well, what happens later? Like, what happens? Like, does this last? Or is it like, well, we don't know. We don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. They come back, you know? And I was like, of course, right? That's like, and so like, are you doing anything for their diet, their lifestyle? Like, are you trying to get them to do anything? And so like, and the answer was, we don't know, things like,
We don't know.
we don't know. And I was like, well, how long are these results going to last, and like, well, we don't know. Nobody studied it, right? And it's not there's not a lot of incentive to study that, as you can imagine,
Uh-huh.
right? And so if you're doing the same things that got you to where you are, the the idea is that you're probably going to go back to where you were at some point after you got back to, even if you got better for a little while. So my thing always is, how can you maximize the benefits, right? And maximizing the benefits of doing hyperbaric therapy for longevity is to do all the groundwork, ahead of time. And then, yes, when you're going to the
Yes.
chamber, you will see that it's a very common thing, as you know, that people will say their skin looks better. Like it's
Hmm.
there's more, like there's less wrinkles. The skin looks more healthy overall, right? There is some studies on collagen production in the skin with hyperbaric therapy, right? So that those are what I would say is added benefits to being in the chamber,
Hmm.
right? I
Yeah.
don't think about the skin as much as you do, right? I think about, but I know you think about more systemic health as well as a manifestation, right? Or the skin is a manifestation or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I would always, I have a lot of patients of mine that have hyperbaric chambers in their house, right? And I will work with them on hyperbaric protocols. I will have them do longevity protocols, go in 5 days a week for 40 sessions, and then I'll have do maintenance, do 3 times a week at various pressures, and then go in once every 1 to 3 to 5 years for another longevity protocol. But I'm measuring things over time. I'm checking their labs. I'm making sure that we're not over oxidizing them, right? And then
Yeah.
maybe they need to be wearing their hyperbaric mask while they're in there because the skin's more sensitive, right? So,
Yeah.
which I haven't been doing, but maybe I need to do more of that.
But I tell you another thing that we know, to your point about like, what we decide to do beforehand. There's something really unique. So actually, I'm going to skip a question that I wanted to ask you if you view, maybe I will, because I'm already half asking it. Do you view HBOT mainly as a stressor, or that's just a byproduct? Like, would you define it as a stressor?
Yes. Yeah, I would. I mean, in general,
Yeah.
unless you have an acute issue, unless you have an acute trauma where you're really just looking to reoxygenate as fast as
Mhm.
possible, the major way that hyperbaric therapy works is by causing oxidative stress.
Yes.
That's what increases stem cells. That's what changes your epigenetics. That's what decreases your inflammation, increases new blood vessels. That's all because of oxidative stress. So
Yeah.
and there's pressure involved as well. There's the pressure itself that increases energy. And of course, you need to make energy. And that's why people feel better oftentimes in the chamber. But in essence, the majority of what's happening long term in a chamber is related to oxidative load, hormetic stress. So you better be able to tolerate that, right? Or you better be
Hmm.
able to know what your capacity is to be able to balance that over time.
By the way, it's very it's not the same, but it's very similar with infrared saunas. Uh, I love how fill in the blank would say people got like adverse reaction to the infrared sauna that they can't detoxify. It's a nice story. No, you increased oxidative load and the body could not respond. Um, but the reason I'm saying it is because one of the things that happens in the chamber, like you said, some positive things are happening in the chamber. One of them actually is activation of sirtuins, especially SIRT1. And we know that in the skin athletes, the minute that you get to the uh, hypoxic stage response that happens, that actually stops. So we definitely only from that point of view, if we wanted to support that kind of DNA repair process, we actually want to kind of front load, with NAD or
Yeah.
other spermidine or other things that would support that sirtuin and PARP activation, things like that, rather than wait for after.
Yeah. I mean, again, trying to measure people and understanding where they are from a foundational oxidative load inflammatory state is very, very important. And I think that gets missed a lot in the hyperbaric
Hmm.
world because, again, if you have a chamber to sell, you want to sell it. If you have a chamber to fill in a clinic, you want to fill it. And I get that. But if we could wait a little while and to work on that and then support the system while they're going through, I've seen just more massive benefits by far doing it in that
Hmm.
capacity. But yeah, those are really good points.
Okay, great. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to kind of cover as far as chambers, because I think we've spoken a lot about it here, and because it's such a touchy subject as far as like regulation stuff like that, I think you get a lot of vague answers. So I'm really happy we got an answer around. You could definitely go into a chamber. It has to be with intent, if you would.
Yeah.
Any
Yeah. I would
any thoughts on CVAC?
Yeah, so CVAC is like a hypoxic environment, right?
Yeah.
So it's giving you this altitude-like chamber
Yeah.
where you go up and down altitude very quickly. I think there's some benefits there. I mean, I do think that the pressure is the main thing that's happening there, and the
Hmm.
pressure itself causing shear stress. There's like mild hypoxic stress. I do think there is some evidence that it does increase mitochondrial biogenesis. So I think it's good. However, I do worry that it could be too stressful for people that are already under significant
Hmm.
stress. What I'd prefer people do in that case is do hyperbaric therapy with air brakes, because then the air
Hmm.
brakes are kind of like a relative hypoxic stress without
Yeah.
going into altitude type of chamber or altitude conditions. But look, I have a lot of friends of mine that are in the sort of altitude hypobaric world and doing it for performance and seeing massive benefit. And I think it's where you're seeing a lot of that is in the creation of more mitochondria per cell.
Hmm.
And also you get new blood vessels that way too.
Yeah, you get
So
like erythropoietin, right? Like the expression of erythropoietin.
Yeah, you can. So I think there's benefits there, and I've been working on some protocols where you do both, but I really it's a little bit hard in the system depending on the type of hyperoxic and the hypoxic exposure.
Hmm.
So I have a friend of mine. His name is Brian McKenzie. Brian's like this like breath guru expert. People can look him up. He's got a nonprofit. It's called Adapt Shift, and he does a lot of CO2 training. And we talk a lot about hypoxic training and hyperbaric training, and kind of putting all that together. But that's more advanced for most people. I think for the most part, like got to stick to the basics unless you're really
Yeah,
looking at it from like a performance perspective. So
got it.
yeah,
Okay, so I do have questions. So you obviously founded a company that I'm addicted to. That's called Transcriptions. The company I
co-founded,
was
co-founded, yeah, yeah,
what?
co-founded, yeah,
Co-founded.
yeah.
Um, but first of all, I have to say that my story is that I was subscribed to the first teaser newsletter. I don't know what it says about me as a human. There is a whole story about the first newsletters or the first teasers, but way before I met you guys, and
Yeah.
I was very, very interested in what you are doing as far as like the intersection between like biohacking and actually using troches, because I knew troches from uh, a good friend, Kent Crowley, who kind of pioneered troches and CBD and sometimes THC. He just didn't tell people that that's part of it. Uh, and and um and then comes along a company that has this incredible delivery system for a molecule that I only heard about. I actually was afraid, like everyone else, to take because it was alleged as a fish tank cleaner.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We had some good initial headlines during the pandemic with some of our
Yes,
friends, like the Biohacker Babes, and Ben Greenfield was actually featured in it too. It's like biohackers taking fish tank cleaner to reverse their age or something like that. So it
yes,
was good.
exactly.
It was a very like woke moment for like the horse dewormer kinds of things, that
Yes,
kind of thing. But it
yes,
was good publicity at the time. But yeah, that
yes.
the first newsletter must have been like maybe September of 2019 or something like that. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
we had a lot of build up to our final launch of the first Blue Canatine back. It was in February 2020. It took us a long time to launch that, but
Still
that's
my
been
favorite product, to be honest.
yeah.
I
Is that
mean, I
right?
love all of them. Yeah, I love to look at it. And I have it everywhere. It's funny. I literally have it everywhere. Like I have it in the bedroom. I have it like in a closet downstairs. I have it next to the when I prepare for the podcast. I have it.
That's
I
awesome.
yeah. I think to be honest, again, an amazing product. But before we get into like product,
Yeah,
because
sure.
I'm
Yeah, yeah,
could you just kind of linger a little bit on like what troches are
yeah,
and maybe how they deliver benefits differently from traditional supplements, because that's what
yeah.
they are pitted against, whether rightfully or not. Like that's what
No,
they.
it's a good like sort of comparison factor, right? So troches have been around for a long time. They got their major uses in compounding pharmacies, and
Mhm.
compounding pharmacies use it for hormones. They use it for ketamine, for example. And what's nice about a troche, and I actually have one here I can show people because you know I do these things and I have to show and tell. Um, this is what it looks like over here. It's like or there's a dissolvable lozenge
Mhm.
that's scored, so it's got a line in between it. It looks like a cross.
Mhm.
Um, and the nice thing about a troche, a couple things. So the first is that it's a buccal absorption, so it goes between your upper cheek and gum up here, and as a result of that, it bypasses digestion. And so when many things, we saw when we ingest many things, supplements, food, et cetera, it goes through digestion, it goes through our liver, and it gets a lot of things, especially our supplements, get inactivated. So
Mhm.
by bypassing that whole process, you're keeping the ingredients more active by directly absorbing into the mucosa here.
Yeah.
The other thing about it is that the buccal mucosa is highly vascular, and so you're also going to get a much more rapid delivery over here
Mhm.
as a result of getting the buccal absorption, which is great. And then the third thing is that these troches, as being scored, as I mentioned, they are titratable. So the problem with a
Mhm.
lot of capsules, of course, is that a capsule is like one dose, and
Mhm.
if you want to make it less of a dose, it's going to get messy, right? Um,
Yeah.
Troches are great because they're easy to titrate. So you can start out with a quarter. You can even cut up into an eighth if you really want to, if you have like a straight blade, which sometimes I'll do, depending on the troche. Those are usually the off the books troches, but that's a different story.
Exactly.
But but it can be quarter, half, full. You can titrate your dose. You can see it kind of works best for you. And so those are the main reasons why we use troches. And like they're easy to be very precision about it. Like, uh, everybody's had that experience where they've had like the pot brownie, right? Where like no, you like your friend got no symptoms at all, felt great, like and no THC at all, like didn't have any issues and didn't get high. Then you got the brownie with all of the THC in it, and you couldn't move.
Uh-huh.
I'm not talking about experience here or anything. This happened
And
to me.
you're asking Jesus, how did you do? And Jesus said, I'm doing great, but Buddha has slipped.
Yeah,
And
yeah. This happened to me in high school. Oh, mom, if you're listening, I'm sorry. But I don't think I've mentioned this on a podcast. She listens to a lot of my podcasts.
Oh,
But like
that's
my
adorable.
parents were away, and my parents were away, and we made pot brownies before we went to go to watch Jimmy Page and the Black Crowes. And I'm a huge fan of Led Zeppelin. And I was so excited about the show. And I literally said like the whole show, my head was in my lap, and I was like,
Wow.
I can't move or enjoy this at all. So anyway, so when you have a troche, you can precision dose it. So these are all homogenized in a way that you have the exact amount of ingredients in any portion of the troche. So it's precision dosed in that way too. So it's really nice to have that, especially when I'm working with people that are sicker and they have more inflammation, and like
Yeah.
we have to worry about what their dose is going to be, and like we want to make sure they're getting the exact same thing every single time.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, and to attest to that, most of the time I take the just blue troches. I swallow them because I just, Stacia doesn't like when my teeth are blue. Quite frankly,
Understood.
that's the reason.
Well, the cool thing about methylene blue though, is that it's an anomaly in the sense that it's almost 100% bioavailable, no matter how you take it. So if you take it as a troche or you swallow it, you're going to get all of it, almost all of it in the system. The difference is how fast it's going to get.
Yeah, that's what I want to say. I can see how fast I pee blue, basically, and it's the difference actually is stark, like how fast it goes to my system.
Yeah.
So that is, yes, I agree with that for sure. Again, very, very interesting. Focusing on methylene blue, I'm itching to talk about other troches. So I'm holding myself true to the questions that I actually want you to answer for other people. But like methylene blue, it obviously has been studied for its benefits in like cellular energy. Let's ignore the fish tank cleaning thing. And obviously mitochondrial function, which we've already spoken about. So how do you see these specific effects influencing skin health, and potentially like supporting, like as you said before about like the 5 things that people should do, like supporting longevity routine?
Yeah, I mean, so again, this kind of goes back to the sort of the basic question, right? If you're supporting mitochondrial function, whether it be in the skin or whether it be in skin cells or in cells around your blood vessels or wherever they are, you're going to see benefits overall. If you can make energy more effectively, you're going to have less inflammation in the system, whether that be around the blood vessels or that be in the skin. So from a skin health perspective, methylene blue has there's actually interesting study that they did where they used methylene blue to see if it would protect skin cells from radiation. And it can do that, right? It can be as powerful to protect skins from radiation, just like, I think that, I can't remember what they compared it to. I want to say it was like
ubiquinol.
It could have been ubiquinol, or it could have been like some other antioxidant or whatever. I don't remember which one it was. But it was basically the conclusion of the study is that this, methylene blue taken orally can protect your skin from radiation. Right. And so why is that? Right. Because methylene blue is protecting your mitochondria. And so I think that there's significant benefit, especially because we're all getting radiation exposure. And I get a little bit more than you do because I live closer to the sun here at 5,000 feet. So, I have to take more methylene blue and use more skincare products, which I should be using more of, but that's a different story. But it's really dry here, man. It's really dry. But anyway, so from a skin health perspective, that's a great indication that, using methylene blue is not only protecting like the inside, but also, your outside, or the cells on the outside of your skin, and protecting it as well. And we have people, we use it a lot for travel, for people that are traveling because of the ionizing radiation of being on an airplane. And we've seen lots of benefits overall, just from a mitochondrial health perspective, from a energy perspective. So like that's where I see, although we haven't studied this and it hasn't really studied in humans, I do see that there could be a significant benefit from a skin health perspective using methylene loop because of its mitochondrial effects.
Yeah. Yes. Now I'm gonna go into the things that I was wondering, and let's see if I'm correct. Like one of my favorite troches that you guys have is a Troimmune, like to the extent where I wanted to write to you guys. By the way, this is a real question. Can I buy all the older Troimmune that you guys have that are higher dose? Can I
So
just buy all of them?
so we have Troimmune in two different ways now. We have Troimmune 75 milligram strength, and we have Tro Plus Mune, which is the 150s. So,
but you can only buy it through practitioners, right?
but I think you know a couple of those.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Like me, for example. So if you'd like them, I can help you get them. Sure. So the Tro Plus, the reason why we did that is because we found that the 150s were really doing a lot for like a lot of amazing work on condition-based work, medical work. And so, and the 75 milligram dose was the day-to-day operations dose or lower for most people. So that's why we decided to kind of go that route. But yeah, it's a fantastic product.
Fantastic product.
Is it really loud? Do you hear things in the background?
A little bit, but thankfully we have a good podcast editor, which So
okay, do you want to pause for 1 second, and I can just close my window? So just
sure.
Just 1 second.
Sure. So my first question about like Troimmune. So first of all, 75 is you said it's the more day-to-day maintenance dose, but it is also titratable. So is it 75, or do you see most people taking less, or how would you recommend taking it? I'm like 210 pounds. Like,
thank you for letting me know.
Should I lower my weight first, or how does it go?
So think about Troimmune. So Troimmune's active ingredient is a really cool compound, like it's called cordycepin, which is from that's the most active component of the cordyceps mushroom. And so cordyceps is known from thousands of years to be a healing, longevity, energy, libido, lung health, immune system health mushroom. But we've taken the active component of it, the most active, which is like 100 times more powerful for all of those things. Okay. But especially as an anti-inflammatory. And it works on certain pathways like the NF-kappa B pathway, like mTOR, all this stuff, right? And so the interesting thing about it is it works like adenosine in the body. It's an adenosine agonist. And so adenosine has a lot of different mechanisms, some in the skin, maybe, I don't know, you could tell me, but I'm sure it does. But what it does from my perspective is that, so adenosine is a neurotransmitter in the brain, so it helps you feel sleepy. So if you drink caffeine prevents adenosine from binding, so it makes you feel more awake. So what some people have been doing with Troimmune at like lower doses, at like a quarter of the Troimmune or even a half, is actually drinking your coffee and then having your Troimmune.
Like L-theanine type.
Well, more of that. So what happens is adenosine is in the brain, but also adenosine helps you make energy, right? Adenosine triphosphate. So instead of it being diverted to making you feel sleepy as a neurotransmitter, because those receptors are blocked, it'll go to your cells and your mitochondria to help you make more energy. Nice. And so drink your caffeine, have a little bit of Troimmune, and then go work out, and you potentially increase your workout capacity. But most people are taking Troimmune at night because it does, at about 40 milligrams or so, increase deep sleep. And that's why it's also in Trochies, our transcription product Trochies as well. But it is also at night that's when we're the most relaxed typically, right? And that's when our immune system is going to be the most modulated to be able to fight stuff in general. That's why I say sleep is the best medicine, right?
Yeah.
It's not just like an old wives' tale. It is, because when you sleep, you're able to heal. And so the cordycepin in the Troimmune here can be really helpful. And you can use it a couple different ways. You can use it as a sort of a targeted, where you're like, you're under more stress, like you're traveling, like the baby's keeping you up, like somebody's come in the house and like they're sick again. And you can use it like as a higher dose for that. Like, so in that case, I would use 75 milligrams minimum nightly until whatever it was getting better.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's more like prophylactic, like you're just kind of using it, like you have like day-to-day stress and like you're doing like, then I use like the lower dose. Like I use like a half of the troche, about 37.5. And that's
Yeah.
kind of like my day-to-day operations during the summer, like and especially when things, when you're outside a lot, you're exercising, you're getting good sunlight, then just like a low dose is all I would use sort of prophylactically. But from like if I'm on an airplane, if somebody's sick in my house, like I'm giving it to them too, by the way. I'm giving the person Troimmune in my house. Even my wife, who doesn't listen to me, will take Troimmune because it helps her when she's got a viral
Mm-hmm.
infection. Because it's also directly antimicrobial. Cordyceps,
Mm-hmm.
because it works like adenosine. Adenosine is a base pair in our DNA, in our
Mm-hmm.
RNA. So it actually can block the replication of fast replicating things like bugs, like viruses, and like even potentially cancer cells as well. So it's being studied for that as well. So I can get my wife to take it for the cold and flu kinds of things. I give it to my kids at low doses. If they're coming down with something, like, dude, it's been like this last year of my life. I mean, my kids are older. That's true. Like my youngest is 7 and my oldest is 13. So it's not like I'm getting snotted on as much as you will be if you haven't been snotted on yet. For the first 5 years of their life, you're
Mm-hmm.
basically like their tissue. Um, so, um, so I often used to tell my friends without kids, it's like I get sick more than you do because the amount of the load that I get of organism is going to be so much higher than the load that you get. Going on a subway or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Right. So there's that.
So you were saying so that's why you use basically Troimmune as either prophylactic or you would use a full dose during
Right.
the winter.
Yeah, full dose in the winter, and then when I'm traveling, I'll use more. I'll use the 150s if I'm at a conference. The Troplusmune for that, and I also use the Troplusmune a lot for my patients with more chronic autoimmune, inflammatory
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things because I see those doses being very, very helpful. I mean, it's been studied at these doses for allergies, mast cell activation, and as a result of that, I've seen some benefit. Now, I'm not making any claims about this stuff, right? I mean, this is just claims in the sense of we know
Mm-hmm.
what happens with the physiology, and these are some studies that have been done in animals and in small human trials. But in the house, I use it with my kids. I use it with my wife. My wife doesn't do anything that I tell her, but she will take some Troimmune. Um, so I think that there is a lot of benefit to using it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But I think you can use it on a targeted level as well. And what I love about it is like I get these responses all the time. I'm gonna tell you where like people will tell me, I slept for the first time in a long time taking Troimmune. And I'm like, well, it wasn't really designed for that. It was designed to help you, get the inflammatory downregulation and the antimicrobial side of things. Um, but it does increase deep sleep because it's an adenosine agonist, right? So
Yeah, because sleep is just like sleep or sleepiness or deep sleep is just the offsetting of the balance between adenosine clearing and the adenosine accumulation. Like it's not like one or the other. So
yeah,
you're
no,
just
exactly, right.
offsetting the
So
balance.
yeah, we're helping with that balance to be shifted in the way that
Yeah.
you're able to fall asleep
Yeah.
faster, and then you're able to get more sleep. So, um, I've gotten a number of people that reached out to me over the last year. Like this is the first time I've been able to sleep in name it 5, 10, 20 years, like a long time. And it's because they're getting an increase in deep sleep. Now, if you do take Tromium for a long time, you will notice that your REM sleep goes down a little bit, but this is
Hmm.
compensating for your deep sleep going up. So I see like
Yeah.
a 20 or 30% increase in deep sleep, but I see about a 20 or 30% decrease in REM over time as well. So that's just something people have to be aware of.
Hmm.
Most people won't mind having a little bit less REM sleep. It's the deep sleep that most of us are
Yeah.
not getting as much of as we get older.
Also, REM sleep is really the measurement of REM sleep is amateur at best.
Totally true. Yeah,
So yeah.
very true. Yeah, but if
I,
you like your day to day numbers, if you have an aura ring or
yeah.
something like that, you will see those numbers shift in that way. So just to be aware of that.
Hmm.
But the interesting thing about it is like when you take Trimium before bed, you'll oftentimes get another deep sleep bump earlier in the morning, where most
Mm,
people won't usually get a lot of deep sleep right before they get up in the morning. So that's good because you're getting more, but some people will feel like a tiny little bit groggy when they wake
yeah.
up because they're not used to getting that deep sleep at like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning before they wake up. So just something to be aware of.
Reminds me of people experimenting with again growth hormone improved sleep. So I do have a couple, like one more question maybe about the, one more anecdote, which we don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to get into, but from the, we now are setting an nano NAD lab here in South Florida, and one of the amazing doctors that we work with, Fenton LeBon, he's hypothesizing it has a lot of like substantial that, a lot of kind of experience to back that up, but he hypothesizes a lot of the benefits that we perceive that we're getting from NAD IVs, etc., is actually that increased adenosine. So
Interesting. Okay.
yes,
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard different things. Yeah.
including pain and addiction cessation.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I mean, adenosine is such a ubiquitous molecule in the body, so it wouldn't be surprising to me if it had a lot of other roles like that potentially. But we'll have to see how cordyceps kind of transpires and how things go. But very excited about it. This is like the challenge with anything that kind of helps with your immune system is that you don't know it worked unless you don't get sick, and then you're like, well.
But we say in Hebrew, prove that you don't have a sister.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I love that. Yeah. But some people, like, as I mentioned, because of that deep sleep bump, you will have that benefit. And that's really good if you're sick. Obviously, if you're sick and you get more sleep, you're going to get better faster. Right. So that's an important point.
So cordyceps is also known for a better oxygenation. Is there a benefit there as well from the cordyceps or no?
So what that means is that cordyceps and the cordyceps in it can be just utilized just like ATP. So it can be made into ATP. So you have more capacity to make ATP if you have cordyceps around. That's why it can increase your VO2 max. So it's not increasing oxygenation per se, but it's increasing the capacity for you to utilize oxygen more on a minute-to-minute basis, right? Because
interesting.
You have the capacity there. Yeah.
So would you say for athletic performance, do we want to kind of have that alongside, like either, obviously like blue carnitine or methylene blue, because that is also, something that improves the, basically the Krebs cycle or ATP production?
Yeah, so we have people taking like low dose Strommune in the morning along with blue carnitine. So you're blocking but you use the blue carnitine first because you're blocking the adenosine receptors in the brain because you have caffeine in there, and then you go and you work out. It's a fantastic combination. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then of course you can use methylene blue to help optimize mitochondrial function at the same time. So it's the trifecta, man. Yeah, for sure.
To be honest with you, and shout out to Trochies. I think it's such a cool product, but to me it's. Trochies, I say I headbutt the pillow. Like literally, you can wait like 15 minutes, and I literally feel like I am forcefully like basically like falling asleep, like someone hit a button of some sort. It's pretty crazy.
That's funny. That's great. And that's always good to hear. But that's not what everybody needs. But that's what a lot of people can use, right? So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I do take it together with Trommune, so that might be the.
That's my combination too. Is I use like a half. Well, especially when I'm traveling, it's a half a Trochies and a half a Trommune, or sometimes a full Trommune to help with travel.
Fantastic. Let me do a recap. My recap of like, again, as a legit transcription like addict. Let me do a recap of how I view things, and you should correct me if I'm wrong or improve my kind of my approach.
Okay.
So I did not do the both Trommune and blue carnitine before jujitsu. I actually did not apply the idea of a quarter Trommune for jujitsu yet, but I do take blue carnitine. I take my Just Blue in the morning, and I take it with coffee. So I was like, okay, let's not do blue carnitine. We're going to do Just Blue.
Right.
Now, one of the things that I think are very important for skin health, but also for me as an entrepreneur, is the sense of delicate calm. Obviously, I'm translating here from Hebrew. In my head, it sounds significantly better and less silly in Hebrew, but the not a numbing calmness, but a calmness that you still are interested in what you are doing. You are just not getting, different emotion peaks while going through a task, and that I think is incredible as far as like the true calm. Another thing that I really like about Trocom is, recommending it to people alongside their journey for skin optimization. And the reason is because one of the things that, and actually we spoke it quite thoroughly about it on podcasts that we had in the morning, there is an issue with catecholamine, especially like cortisol and skin health, because cortisol increases the releasing of dead skin, which accumulates. So if your cells don't turn over fast enough, but you shed dead skin, you're actually accumulating it.
Mhm.
And in general, it increases MMPs, which damage collagen. So that's I recommend it to everyone, honestly, that are interested in skin health.
Yeah, thank you.
Again, same thing with methylene blue, because again, we need better mitochondria if we want to improve our skin health. Adenosine is super important, but in general, chromium, like your immune system, I think, there is a really, really, really good book, which 100 is the New 30 by Jeffrey Gladden.
Okay.
And he has these three pillars, which is like optimal performance, robust, I guess like resilience and longevity, and it's the Venn diagram, right? So I think resilience, but you can have one and actually like damage the others, right?
Yeah.
So in the quest of resilience, a lot of the times what you are doing to build resilience doesn't manifest itself in like optimal performance or longevity. Like any comment about Wim Hof's skin would be appropriate here, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a good one.
So I think like a robust immune system that we didn't need to like jeopardize other parts of that Venn diagram for is like extremely important for skin health as a whole. And of course, in the sleep is king or queen, whatever. Number one thing you want to do. So the stack of like Trozy and Tromium at night for me is like essential. Did I miss anything as far as like stacks, or do you think that's pretty much?
I mean, I think you did a good job, man. That for the sleep stack, Tromium plus Trozy. Some people use Trocom instead of Trozy if they have more difficult time going to bed, but once they fall asleep, they're fine because their mind is kind of racing. But yeah, then your methylene blue carnitine, Tromium stacks in the morning, you can play with those as well. Yeah, thanks. This has been fun, man. I appreciate it. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, it's my absolute pleasure. Scott, where can people find out more? Obviously, where can they buy it, but also how can they learn more about?
Yeah, so I mean, we're education forward. I mean, I do I do a lot of the education for the company. You go to trochescriptions.com. We have tons of blogs on there from everything we've been discussing here today. And then you can go to @Trochescriptions on Instagram. You can go to @Dr. Scott Sherr, DrScottsherr, my name. On Instagram, you can find me there. On the Hyperbaric side, you can just find me anywhere. But my website there is integrativehbot.com. If people are interested on that side. But yeah, go to Trochescriptions, check it out, try some products. If you're a practitioner, sign up for an account, and we can get you, we can get you wholesale pricing. And I will be hooking up Amatei over here with some Tro Plus Immune too. It sounds like.
Woohoo! And Home Hope, how do they get there?
Oh yeah, our nonprofit. You go to homehope.org, and you can check it out. We have a 7-module certification course for all different types of practitioners.
That's fine. I'll tell Jody you didn't mention it. That's fine. No problem. Fantastic. Scott, thank you very much. It has been an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure, man. Take care.